viewers, my name is Lily DiDomenico and I'm going to talk to you about thermodynamics. Some important things you must know before I start are the definitions of a system, a boundary, a closed system, an open system, and an isolated system. Take a minute and write these down. The first law of thermodynamics. This can easily be explained with the doctor of a leading weight loss group and how she has responded to posts to her group on why people were unable to lose weight. She said it was because the law of thermodynamics. It states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be rearranged. The change inside a system will result in the change in the outside of a system, like fat cells becoming muscle cells. This means to lose weight, someone else has to gain it. Since fat cannot be destroyed, it can only be rearranged. Think of this blanket as my fat. If I were to give it to someone else, it could be rearranged. This is not possible, although you can get rid of your fat cells and it could turn into muscle or energy. Systems tend to progress in the direction of increasing entropy. Example is a glass of water. The temperature of the water and the temperature of the room begin to equalize. The entropy of the room decreases because some of the energy is used to equalize the temperature of the ice in water. But the entropy of the ice in water has increased. Going back to the system I explained earlier, not all fat can be transformed. Some of the fat is lost in the environment due to its inefficiency. Another example, a room will invariably become more messy and disorderly within time, regardless of how careful one is to keep it clean. When a room is clean, the entropy decreases, but the effort to clean it has resulted in an increase of entropy outside the room that exceeds the entropy lost. Entropy is a measure of disorder and randomness. An isolated system has an entropy of 0. Only a pure crystalline substance at absolute 0 temperature can have an entropy of 0. Since this is impossible, the second law of thermodynamics implies that the third law is entirely hypothetical. It would be a ball rolling down a hill. No work was done and no force was acted on it. Non-spontaneity would take more time. Gibbs free energy is usable energy or energy that is available to do work. All chemical reactions involve a change in free energy, a change in G. The equation for the change in G can be used for any system that undergoes this change. G equals the change in H minus T, the change in S. The change in T is total energy of a system. The change in S is the measure of disorder of a system. And then temperature is T, which is in chemics, is when energy is released during a reaction. The change in G will be negative. This means the product of the reaction will have less free energy than the reactants. Energy is exciting the system. Endothermic is when energy is put into a chemical reaction. Then the change in G will be positive. This means that the products store energy and the reactants have less free energy. Energy is required for the reaction to occur. Activation energy is the ball on the top of a hill. It needs a little energy, then it can travel on its own. For example, me giving it a push. It'll travel down on its own during the transition state. Reaction that requires more activation energy will take longer. An example of this would be endothermic reaction, such as iron rusting. In many cells, many reactions are constantly occurring, and sometimes the activation energy is too high and needs to be lowered so that it can react and become quicker. Done through catalysis, which increase the rate of chemical reactions. Activation energy is taken from a molecule's or cell's surroundings, so it can be light and pressure or heat. These forms of energy speed up the motion of molecules in their frequency, allowing collisions and reactions to occur. Exothermic reactions occur when the energy of what you start out with is less than the energy of what you finish with. This is generally caused by temperature because heat can be lost in surroundings. Combustion is the heat giving off. Endothermic reactions take in energy and the temperature decreases in its surroundings. Electrolysis is dissolving salt in cold water. The Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution theory explains how if a molecule is vibrating, everything else is vibrating. For example, if I have Parkinson's disease, I am shaky. Then the knife is shaky. Then the tomato I'm trying to cut with the knife is shaky. ATP is the energy currency of the cell. ATP powers many life-sustaining reactions inside our bodies. For an example, contraction of muscles. Thermodynamic parameter gives free energy depending on whether or not it is positive or negative. It tells us whether or not the reaction requires energy or releases energy. If the result is negative, it releases energy, and if positive, it requires energy. Imagine a hot cup of coffee. This holds energy and will release it. This is releasing energy the same way ATP is being released. Free energy from ATP hydrolysis is functionally linked to the energy needs of another chemical reaction. Free energy is the portion of a system's energy that can perform work. The use of an exergonic process is to drive an endergonic process. Exergonic process is the process which a net release of free energy releases energy. Endergonic process is a process which absorbs free energy from the surroundings that need energy. Pay attention to this hydrolysis equation. The change in Gibbs free energy is very negative. Many of our bodies have a positive G value, which requires an input of energy, thus drinking coffee. The overall change in G value for the reaction is equal to the sum of the G values for the individual steps of a reaction. A positive G value means you need energy. A negative G value is favorable, which means you have energy. The act of drinking coffee requires energy because it takes energy to lift the cup up and to bring it to your mouth to drink. The actual drinking of the coffee, your body is consuming energy and breaking down the milk and sugar so your body can have it. Coupling is joining a reaction that is endergenically favorable. The change in G value with one that has energetically unfavorable change in G value. The coupled process often occurs simultaneously. Reactions that have energy add to the reactions that need energy. ATP is the rechargeable battery in energy coupling. ATP has 3 phosphate groups, making it highly charged. ATP gives away a phosphate group, an endergonic reaction, and it receives a phosphate group in an exergonic reaction. Equilibrium as supply and demand being equal. If I want 5 shirts and they're only selling 5, and I get all 5 of them, and no one else wants any. In the human body, this would result in death, but supply and demand are not always equal. If demand were more than supply, then adding workers would be like adding ATP to a reaction. By adding workers, you would get more money, as in more energy, because more products are being sold. This helped you understand thermodynamics. Thank you so much for listening.